her voice, so calm, so genuine, each scripted word full of caring. Her expressions of encouragement were memorized and rehearsed, laced with just the right amount of reassurance and sensitivity. She was an expert at this, seasoned in the art of making something that was not okay, okay. She was a guide, the master at coaching women in my position many times before. She was all I had. Despite the reality of her manufactured sincerity, she was all I had. So I followed her advice, adhered to her direction to the letter, closed my eyes, took a few deep breaths, in and out, in and out. Everything would be okay. It will be over soon. I repeated this mantra over and over in hopes that words would attach themselves to my psyche and remove all the negativity that was housed there. I gazed up at the bag of fluid that dangled from the IV stand. Its appearance was deceptive, as still and clear as water. The content's sole function was to place me in an unconscious state as the doctor extracted life from my body. An unspeakable sadness came over me. Never in a million years did I ever think that I would be in this situation. I wondered if the fetus nestled in the plush security of my uterus would be numbed by the anesthesia as well, or if it would even feel the pain. Made me sad. Made second thoughts and doubts about terminating my child's life take root. And then, as if on cue, like she could sense the apprehension, she increased the speed of the drip. I instantly felt the effects, felt myself slip. Welcome the sensation because, at least for the moment, it made me forget what made this happen. Never had been the one to make decisions with an irrational nature. Had always been recognized for her practicality and level-headedness. She's going somewhere, destined for big things, my parents' friends observed, a role model for my rebellious young sister. I knew she despised being compared to me. Her identity displaced while mine overshadowed. The perfect one. She who could do no wrong. So you can imagine the shock and disbelief that soon followed when he came into my life. He did not fit with the plans that were laid out for me. An unnecessary distraction, rocking jeans that hung way past what deemed as appropriate. His presence was unexpected and intrusive, synonymous to the Katrina in the 9th Ward. And he was equally destructive, leaving emotional and psychological damage in his wake. He was the irresistible, wicked combination of intelligence and sex appeal. A poet whose lyrical mastery often left me in a seat, squirming anticipation of the next verse to slip from his cocoa lips. We were drawn to each other. He appealed to the unfamiliar, untapped sensual sides of me. Told me I was his rib. And I fell head over heels for him. My family, they sensed his treachery, especially my father, who was already skeptically predisposed to question the sincerity of any man that showed interest in me or my sister. But this one was caused red flags to wave and hairs to stand up on my neck. They tried to warn me against succumbing to his capulations, but I refused to take heed. Their warnings placed in category of jealous opposition. I was blinded, like the devil has done so of his unbelievers. He had me open as his manipulation took on a different form. He seduced me. He made me open, and his intellect, our foreplay was that of mental sort. I experienced multiples each and every time we engaged in a dialogue. So it wasn't long before curiosity about consummation crept, and I surrendered innocence willingly. Our copulation was pure, like uncut cocaine. I wanted the most raw, primal parts of him. I became addicted to his poison. Strung out, my studies, future, friendships, placed on an indefinite hiatus. Never entertained the idea of protection, just thought of the latex barrier seemed to taint the sacredness of our physical connection. I ignored the symptoms my body was going through. Metamorphosis, changes, hormones my body was going through, hormones in frenzy, adaptation, sore breast, and mood swings in full effect. The desire to purge every morning became my alarm clock. Appetite for weird shit like cantaloupe and hot sauce. 60 days late before I realized something was amiss. The thought of us not being together never dawned until EPT. Amazing how a plastic stick, piss, in 3 minutes can completely change everything. Ignorance is bliss was redefined that day. He changed. Charisma and charm morphed into anger and avoidance. It didn't make sense. Why didn't he share the same optimism at the realization that I was carrying his seed? His legacy and mine, growing each day that passed. Why? Accusations of entrapment, claims of infidelity, even desperate charges of immaculate consummation. Anything he could devise in his mind to avoid responsibility. Who was this man? My parents admonished their omen of ain't nothing good about that fool coming to the fruition. Replaying in my head like a song on the radio I hate to hear, but know all the words. The thought of admitting that I had given into fleshly whims, sacrificed dreams of success, future ambition, was too daunting to a task to comprehend. But at the same time, I couldn't bear the shame. The consideration of ending my pregnancy by means of abortion sickened me. It carried too many negative stigmas. Back alley clinics, dirty equipment, back ties with infectious diseases, and death came to mind. Not to mention, people treated you differently. They judged and vilified, even went to extremes. Hypocritical in their stance, some would resort to murder over the controversy, even though the bottom line was that the decision was mine. It was my body, my life, my cross to bear, my choice. But political agendas and court rulings often dictated the outcome, silencing the voice of the one and only voice that should matter. Ironic how men who father these unborn babies never face the same scrutiny or judgment, getting off scot-free. But despite all that's in my heart, for me, I know it was wrong. A sin in God's eyes, murder. Never thought I'd put myself in this position, but then again, whoever does. Incredible how strength of your convictions and your personal truths may be. When put in the mix, your views may sway. Judging is easy to do until you have to sit in the seat of the accused.
Okay, Toni. That's good.